Are baby boomers, Gen X, Millennials, and Gen Z all that different? I've heard it both ways. My friend Janet Granger says there are big differences, but I've also seen old quotes about baby boomers that sound suspiciously like recent quotes about Gen Z, which makes me wonder if some of the differences are just a matter of growing older. We have a funny relationship with generalizations, or can I use the more fraught term, stereotypes? All my listeners are smart enough to know that a generalization or a stereotype can be true even if it's not true in every case. So, for example, the psychologists tell us that men are more mechanically inclined than women by one standard deviation. That's averages. That's true despite the fact that Sally is a car mechanic and Harry can't change his oil. Now, in my mind, these things are somewhat like Myers Briggs stuff and personality. I dislike those kinds of groupings because I've only seen them abused, but that's a topic for another day. At the same time, it's been reliably shown that people do vary according to the big five personality traits, which you can remember by Ocean: openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. What bugs me is when someone assumes that because someone tends towards extroversion, it's a scale after all, you're not 100% extrovert or 100% introvert, that if you tend towards extroversion, you will therefore act as an extrovert in every situation at all times, and obviously that's wrong. So let's pick at this a little bit. It's wrong to assume that an individual has the characteristics of a group that individual happens to be a member of. So even if there are Gen Z characteristics and boomer characteristics, that doesn't mean every person in the one generation has the characteristics of that generation. People are individuals, and there are lots of variations within any group. Still, come on, there has to be a consequence to growing up with a black and white TV on one hand and growing up with an iPhone in your face on the other hand, right? So there are going to be differences between generations that have to be significant. This all leaves me somewhat ambivalent. It's very likely there are some general guidelines that you should maybe not follow, but at least keep in mind when dealing with a particular demographic group, including a particular generation. After all, marketing is a game of averages. That can be true despite the fact that we can't apply those generalizations to an individual. You're Gen Z, therefore, don't do that. So here's the Crable take on this. Number one, there are probably statistically significant differences between generations. In fact, I'd be shocked if there weren't. Number two, most of the stuff you hear about generational differences is probably hype and marketing BS with no scientific basis. Number three, when it comes to these alleged differences, there's a continuum between slavishly follow and ignore. So avoid the extremes. And number four, don't think of these things as givens, but as hypotheses that you can test. Test them in your marketing. If you've done any interesting tests along these lines, please let me know. I'd love to hear about it. Okay, thank you very much for listening. If you haven't already, please go to crablegroup.com, sign up for the Crable letter. Thank you very, very much for listening today. And if you have any questions or comments, please let me know.